do, but there we go. So we already have a sprint model that does absolutely nothing in master. But today I should be able to get everything in a state where the backend maintainer would just go ahead and merge it. At that point, we have a model that behaves like a milestone, not entirely like a milestone, but it'll be able to tell you whether the percentage of issues are complete. You'll be able to assign issues, but from a backend perspective inside of the Rails console. And that is why I'm currently also working on the sprints finder. The sprints finder, it just finds sprints based on the criteria you give it, right?
So yeah, so can you create a sprint, add issues to the sprint, set a time box? Those are the only things we need.
Those things you will be able to do this, well, if it gets merged today, then today, right. But only inside of the Rails console.
That's fine though. I think because for the first iteration, like we just start with,
yeah.
Can we get to the point where we have a controller where somebody
right.
can add an issue to a
sprint? So that's why I'm working on the sprints finder. The sprints finder and the sprints create, update, delete, and promote. Well, promote, I guess I could leave it for later, but at least create, update, and delete services. Those 3 services are required for the sprints controller. So everything is in a line where I need these 3 MRs that actually add the model behavior, right? And that is most likely being merged either today or Monday. It really depends on whether I can get it done before Myra's afternoon, because that's when she will be taking a look. Then the sprints finder already got its initial reviews. So I need to address that, change a few things. And I got it to that state, even though I don't have the other ones merged, because I'm basing the MR on the other branch, just to make things quicker. And I'm also doing the same with the sprints finder, the sprints create, update, and delete and destroy services. And that's why I'm asking whether we should, implement sending the email stuff right now, because the sprints destroy, when you delete a sprint, it goes and creates a system note in all of the issues and merge requests that have it, and it sends out the email that, hey, the sprint was removed from the issue or from the merge request.
See, yeah, I understand what you're saying with regards to having a system note. Like, that's common behavior with everything else. But for context, like, there were no system notes on epics for quite a long time. Yeah, okay. Like for quite a long time, or at least like group and user activity on epics wasn't tracked. I mean, I'm not saying we necessarily want to do that, but
right. But don't waste time on it.
Well, it's more like, once we unblock this work, we can break out a lot of that stuff, and other members of the team can work on it.
Yeah. I'm actually thinking that by Wednesday or Thursday of next week at the latest, I will have at least a work in progress MR with the actual controller, the sprints controller. And with that sprints controller in place, Frontend can add the sprint data to the sidebar, and allow the sprint to be added via the sidebar. Quick actions we can do later.
Yeah, quick actions can wait. And then
I created an epic called improve the usability of sprints across whatever, that I tried to capture all of those like places where sprints would touch, like quick actions, like sort issues.
Searching by sprint, that can come later, although the sprint finder is already there, so maybe it is a small thing, but I'm ignoring it. I'm just going to go with the minimum I need for the controller to exist, so that, because that then just allows us to parallelize all the work.
Mario, does that minimum extend off of, like, how coupled are we to Milestones here? Or are you starting, is it essentially a brand new?
It is essentially exactly the same behavior, because I am refactoring Milestone into a concern. But it'll be easy to diverge afterwards, because this is a brand new model, completely separate table. It has the same structure. The table has exactly the same structure. Well, not exactly the same, database team took the opportunity to tell me to improve certain things about the table, but it basically behaves the same.
Cool. And then API.
And then we'll be able to diverge because we have the model where you can override methods.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, for API then, are we trying to build this in GraphQL?
That would be the approach, I think. I'm not sure how we're, yeah. So I think from a couple of months ago, we decided that we have to implement API on GraphQL and then use the GraphQL methods inside of the V4 API. So you're not supposed to implement anything new in V4. API would come later unless, if Frontend wants to do the API instead of the controller, we could do that. I just don't create the controller. I create the actual GraphQL API first. Yes. Okay.
I was just gonna say I would like to work. I know maybe this is like dumb, but at some point, like I want to have a lot of the planning functions consolidated like into maybe single view app, right? So that like we can have shared state and do things like that. So the more we can do, like however we're doing modern view and GraphQL, the more that that makes it like easy, future change easier, I guess. Is my
because because you can just ask for new attributes or less attributes or whatever you need. Good news there, because I haven't started working the controller. There's zero cost to telling me now that I need to do the GraphQL API instead of a controller. I mean, I still need all these services that I'm talking about anyways in the GraphQL API. It just changes my thinking to, okay, I'll add it to the GraphQL API first, and I'll completely forget about the controller. Controller will not exist ever. Actually, it might have to. It's just because we're gonna, in order to actually create the sprint, like you have a list of all the sprints that exist. Donald, this would be a question for you. We can either do it, have a Rails view with that just grabs all of the sprints that exist and lets you delete it, like the basic Rails view with a controller and views. Or we can have Frontend use the GraphQL API and generate that view with, a view component.
Yeah, we'd prefer that way.
Okay, so I'll just create the GraphQL API. I'll forget about the controller, and Frontend will generate all of these different areas. The only really new thing you got to create is the create, edit, and delete sprints page, because the other ones are just editing the sidebar and editing the issues and MRs views.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had this conversation, because I was going to go for the controller instead of the GraphQL API.
Yeah, I think eventually we'd want to, even on the sidebar, replace Milestones to update the API there to be GraphQL and to kind of backport it to do a similar approach we're going to do with sprints.
Yeah, definitely. For the sidebar though, what you really want is the GraphQL API to support issues and merge requests, because then plus Milestones plus sprints, because you would say, give me this issue, and inside of this issue include this milestone.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think Brett has done some of that already. Some of moving the issue API over to GraphQL. So there's progress being made on that side.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, I'm just writing down, do not create a controller. Do GraphQL instead.
What do we not need to do for the first iteration? What's the absolute minimum that we could release?
Literally just creating changing the name and deleting the sprint, right? We could do just that, and and then adding the issue. I mean, the thing is, adding the just creating, updating, and destroying the sprint doesn't really add value to the user, right? Because you're not adding it to an issue, you're not adding it to a milestone, to a merge request, sorry. But it would be a valid MVC. And it does remove the complexity of updating the merge requests and issues to add the system notes and send the emails and these things.
So why would somebody use that instead of milestones to begin with if they're functionally identical in the first iteration?
They use.
I mean, it
both-
really is just a
both.
signal type of thing, right? You would
Because it
use
can
both,
have,
yeah.
yeah, because it can have two, right? It can have a sprint and a milestone. Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
Well, that's
Like you're
enough.
really just, by changing the name, you're changing the sorry, the signal you're sending your developers, right? Like at least that's what I got from all of the research that UX has been doing. Like people just want to be able to say, this belongs to milestone whatever, and it belongs to the sprint for week 5 or something.
Well, the next thing that you do after this, so like we can do the system notes and all that other stuff, but the basic goal is like if you know which issues are part of what sprint, right? And you can see how many got completed that sprint, and then you can start to calculate the velocity, which you can show in the sprint view. And then when teams go in and do their planning, they say, I can only do X amount of weight per sprint. So they make trade-off decisions. And so that's where we want to start surfacing that data, like in issue boards and other things like that eventually. Like where if there's like a burn down chart and a burn up chart on a sprint.
We're actually going to get the burn down chart more or less for free. It does need a little bit of refactoring, but because that's already implemented in Milestones, like at least all of the calculations are decently easy to move over. But again, for the MVC, not necessary, right? We just want to.
I'm not sure we will get that for free because we have had to introduce a new event for each thing that we want to track for the burn down in order for it to be historically accurate. So we'll have to.
Oh, okay. So yeah, right. The one that we get for free is the one that has the bug where if you remove a milestone, it stops counting it. That's
where stepping back, like the stuff that Patrick's doing overlaps a lot with the stuff that we eventually like want to do in sprints, because like the synthetic labels or whatever he's doing, we're going to want to have that same approach for sprints probably. And so like how you're separating out the milestone stuff into a concern, that same stuff should probably be separated out of concern. So I don't know if it makes sense for you guys to pair on getting that part of it done so you don't redo things here, or like however you guys want to self-organize.
Yeah.
I would just say I wanted to get together about this too, just to talk about the overlaps and make sure that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, you know?
Yeah. Give me a second. I'm going to write a
so that's a good point, actually, Alex. A bit tangential to this conversation, but basically like from some discussion in the past, there was a decision to have a different event tracking each of these activities. So every time an issue is closed, every time a milestone's changed, something else, every time a weight's changed on an issue, that a different object would track each of those activities. So in that case, you would need one for sprints as well. However, now that we have 3 of those things, we'd obviously rather have one thing, like an abstraction, right? Instead of having every time we need to track something, adding another table to follow more events. So like it's that kind of thing there where you know, we have 3 things now, like we'll probably want to refactor that.
Yeah, that feels like one table with an enum would be good.
Yeah, exactly. Like so. So it's just that kind of thing. While one member of the team is working on that, we want to make sure that there's communication going on between the 2.
Yeah, I mean, the main problem here is that I have to refactor things into the other model. So it'll basically end up being a race to the finish where the first one to merge is the one that doesn't have to refactor everything. But yes, I wrote a note right now to follow up with Patrick. I'll meet with him just to make sure that you know, these changes I'm making are not going to kill him when he tries to refactor and everything is entirely different. But it really is just a change in location of the code. So most likely his changes would be able to just be copy pasted into the time box model, or you know, just stay in the milestone model because they're milestone specific.
Yeah, I think one of the things too is like touching into that work. Like eventually on an issue, we're going to want to show the milestones that it has been assigned to in the past, maybe as well as the current one.
Right.
So one of the reasons why people ask for multiple milestones is because they want to be able to report historically accurate information on the milestone view to see like if an issue belonged to lots of different things. When I go look at the milestone or sprint report, I want to see that it was part of that and it missed and it got moved.
All right. Gotcha.
And
yeah, so and that's why we're doing this historically accurate stuff,
yeah,
so that we don't have to do multiple milestones.
and it's the same thing. Why every time an issue misses a label, like our auto triage, or whatever, adds a missed X milestone label to it. And so
Yeah, so we can
we're trying to like take that, how we're solving that with labels, and put it in like the product proper for everyone else.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's an excellent idea. But I mean, that is follow up, right?
yes.
MVC here really is just about seeing the sprint in the sidebar.
Correct. I can, and that's where like I wouldn't worry about anything else. Like you can create a sprint. I don't even know if we should delete. Maybe we should archive, because deleting is very destructive. And we talked about this in the course of doing this, where like if you delete things, it inadvertently erases the history from the issue itself. So then you don't have that traceability, right? So I'm almost, and I'm like, I want to do this with labels as well eventually, where I think we should shift to an archive model instead of the delete, so we aren't destroying data. Because that's like for compliance and audit purposes. But like this is something that Holly and I can talk about, but literally you can create a sprint, you can set the time parameters of it, and then you can assign issues to it and see that in one list, right?
Sure.
Like small thing.
I mean, even editing the sprint, I can leave it for later, because editing the sprint does mean editing the history. Oh, no, actually, I think we don't do that for milestones, so it would be okay not to do it for sprints either. The history of the system notes, I mean.
Yeah. One other thing, thinking about into the future, where the things might diverge, is like setting milestones sprints like an auto schedule. So basically they always start, they're 2 weeks long, and they always start on Monday, right? So that way you're not really creating them yourself. That's cool, what we're doing. Would that support that well? Or like, I just don't want to like break things or not give the future direction up front, so you can make good architecture decisions now. But that's definitely not MVC. I'm just saying like eventually.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so actually, if you tell me don't allow deletion and updates, you just removed a lot of work related to creating system notes when something gets deleted, creating and stuff like that. And the only system note required now is when you change which sprint is assigned to an issue or a merge request.
You might.
So that's a lot of work you just removed from the MVC. Editing the name of the sprint.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, Holly. What do you think? This is where like I would defer to Holly in the UX.
As an MVC, I mean, we could always follow up immediately, but like the minimum thing that you want to show the user, right?
Yeah.
I think it'd be easy to do, editing the name and then timeline as well. Wouldn't you want to be able to edit the dates? Or no?
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think maybe to start with, but eventually I want to get away with that and move it to auto cycles. So
what I'm going to do is put that
at least
at the end.
Give that option.
I'm just going to put that at the end because I can create the ones that I really 100% need are the Sprint Create service. That's it. That's all I need. With the Sprint Create service, I can create the initial GraphQL API that lets you actually grab the sprint information. And with that sprint information, and then I have to update the issues on merge request GraphQL APIs. No, sorry, the controllers. We don't have GraphQL APIs for those yet. The controllers to return sprint information, and we're good.
Mario, see with regards to this, usually the first piece of work that blocks everything else is creating the model and the database table and stuff.
The model is already in the database. It just has no.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely no code.
It has no functionality, right? So once we have that, like, there's going to be work probably to add. Like, I would imagine we would typically spend a milestone on the kind of work that involves being able to search by a new object, right? So if we can break out that kind of stuff that we know we have to get for the first iteration, just create an issue with anything you think that could be broken out and given to somebody else, and that'll at least reduce the risk. And we might actually get this done in 13.0.
Okay.
Even the GraphQL work or the system notes, all that stuff should be able to be done by multiple members of the team.
Yeah, actually, yeah, all of these extra services. I mean, now that I'm talking to you, I've been able to whittle this down a lot. Just the create service, the GraphQL API, only the create part. We can once that's done, front end can come in. But while that is being done, there's nothing stopping other backend engineers from creating the update service and the destroy service and things like that. And the destroy service does need to, create system notes, send emails and stuff like that. But with the model merged, it's actually not hard to parallelize this work.
I also think you could probably do the front end at the same time. Like if we have, if we're get some UX direction from Holly, then I don't know. Like I always wrote stuff using mocks. So I would write my mock GraphQL queries, and I talk to my backend engineer and be like, hey, what's the query going to look like? And like, I would mock that out and mock the data, and then I could build my whole front end. And then as soon as like the backend was ready, I just like switched from using the mock query to the real query, and it like worked. So that could be also an option to parallelize front end with what you're doing, and also help like not do rework between front end and back end and communicate on that layer.
Totally.
So that's an option.
So, yeah, again, I do need the services, and to get the service, I need to find, well, actually, I don't need the finder anymore. Okay, I'm going to prioritize the the sprint creation service. With that done, we can do an initial front end, back end collaboration.
Cool. I think whenever you get to that point,
yeah.
Do you want me to just like write down specific, like from a user for you? I can create a sprint. I can add an issue to a sprint. I can like, and almost stage it that way. So you can be like, okay, now I can see a list of issues on my sprint. So we like kind of do things, breaking down the big like sprints thing into very small user tasks that we
that'd be
on,
awesome.
like doing one at a time.
And the initial collaboration I'm talking about would be, I can create a sprint. Let's actually create the view where you see all of the list of sprints, and that you can click the new sprint button. That is the shortest path right now.
We've got some screens for some of that in the, where is it? The epic that Gabe created, 2422. Put this in the chat here. I'm going to expand on that sprint view in particular. But this shows at least the kind of initial process of creating the sprints.
Sorry, loading. Okay, yeah.
Screen A and screen E are not part of this, so don't worry about that.
A and E are not part of this.
No, that's when we were thinking about making types and all sorts of other stuff like that. But like, we're gonna not do that right now.
Yeah. This is the limit to 5 different types of time boxes. But really, we're just going to leave sprints enabled right now and milestones enabled right now as well, right?
By default.
This is in the future when we actually add the 3rd type of time box, and we can do this.
Or more, or people want to turn them off or whatever, but that's later.
Yeah. So then, screens B to D are the ones that I was talking about as the first step we can take back in front end. B, C, and D. That's just the area where you see the sprints that exist. You create the sprint, and you see the list of sprints that have been created. We can do that quickly, and with the sprint created, then step 2 is screens F and J and H. Yeah, F, J, and H, and that's your MVC right there.
Yep.
So 2 issues, 1 issue for the creation, 1 issue for the actual assignment, 2 issues, and then 1 issue to the actual assignment to milestone, to merge quest. Do we want to assign these to merge quest? I mean, I'm adding the relationship just in case, because it was not expensive to add. And that's how milestones work right now.
We can solve this 2 ways. One way, and I'm going to talk to whoever the PM, James Ramsey or somebody else. Right now, issues are soft related to merge requests, but we need to add a different kind of relationship where there's like an actual, this merge request is implementing this issue. It's not just related to, like, it's literally implementing it, and so they're inexplicably linked. And if that's the case, then you don't need to set this on the merge request, because if it gets merged with this issue, like, then it's dependent on the issues when that, like, basically what time box that falls into, and we shouldn't have to keep adding this stuff to merge requests. And even milestones, like what we really want to know is which software version is this going against. Like
yeah, so like
on the
epics
merge
where
request.
the epic is inheriting dates from all the all of the issues. We just inherit milestone and sprint information from the issue.
Eventually, that's where I'd like to get, but I don't.
Yeah.
So the relationship needs to be there, but I don't know if we'll
Yeah.
set it explicitly on a merge request right away. So I wouldn't worry about that for the first.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, so B through D is one issue, and F through H is another issue, and then we got the MVC. While this is happening, we can actually be working on adding editing to the API, and destroying or archiving. Right now, milestones are allowed to be destroyed. By the way.
Yeah, I know.
But,
I think
I do see what you mean. If you destroy a milestone, you're getting rid of a lot of information.
It's the same thing when you kill a label, delete a label, it removes it from the list, and if somebody did it on accident, then it's like you lose all of that. You can't ever get it back. Yeah. And so if you archive things, like I think that's a better approach, because if you archive it, it could disappear from the issue. But then, like if you unarchive it, then it comes back, and so it's like you're not really removing issues. You're just like hiding things that don't matter anymore, basically. But you're not losing all of the data for.
In order to do that, we're going to need a new table, by the way, historical table. Well, I mean, we are adding a historical table, so we could probably reuse that.
For which part?
Anyhow, sorry. For when you unarchive and you put the milestone back on the issue.
Yes.
So that is actually very complicated logic, because you got to see if there's no new milestone that has been applied to the issue since then and stuff like that.
Well, that's where there can only be one. Like the theory is, and correct me if I'm wrong, we want to show on an issue like what sprints it's been part of, what maybe milestones it's been a part of, but it only can ever be part of one active at a time, right? Mm-hmm. So like the logic would be like, you can't archive an active sprint, you can't archive an active milestone. So as soon as you do, then it closes it. So it becomes like a historical thing. So then when I look at my issue, then the logic is basically like only show things that are like the active
that are not archived. Yeah.
That are not archived. And then if that way, like it's not as complex, I wouldn't think, but.
Yeah, fair enough. And we could add a view for admins where they can see all the archive changes as well.
Sure.
Right? I mean, you probably need that for compliance.
Yeah, that's where I'll talk to Matt Gonzalez and manage, because he's working on that. But like the basically the taking system notes to the extreme and rolling them all up into a compliance report, basically. Yeah. And so we can make sure that stuff happens. But all of that is not MVC. I'm just like saying
this is the future,
what we're trying to solve for, big picture.
Yeah. I think we can start with B through D next week. Seriously. I'm going to prioritize the create finder and then the GraphQL API. With the GraphQL API in flight, not even done, just in flight, so I know more or less what the queries are going to look like. Front can totally jump in and create these views and mock them and then connect with me.
Okay. Do you want me to? It looks like I'm looking at the improved usability sprints.
Donald wanted you to do the user stories. And I think that's useful as well so that we can be like, okay, check, this is already done from a user perspective. Okay,
so can I just change? You have, I guess, is it 214713, which is add sprints controller?
Right.
Do you want me to just like say like
wrong? Yeah.
I'll just
sprints GraphQL. Yeah.
Or can I just add like where do you want me to create those stories? Because I almost just want to refactor what's there and like make them based on this, but I don't want to. Like
no, that's fine. If you're gonna add stories there, then I would suggest adding just the MVC stories.
Okay, I'll actually make what I'll do is in the Epic the 2422. I'll just make a checkbox under that in the description, and then however you want to organize your issues, like that's fine with me.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that would work better, and I'm gonna update that controller. Okay, hang on. Where is it? Create sprints controller. Where is it? Oh, I never added it to the Epic. Whoops. Oh no, there we go. There it is. So instead of controller, Sprints GraphQL API. GraphQL API and views to be able to add sprints. I'm removing delete and update from this issue. Project group and dashboard views. Actually, it doesn't. It only includes the project and group views. Dashboard view is
And I think to start with, like these, I was envisioning only creating sprints at the group level to start.
okay. So,
well, if it's easy to put them in both, sure. But
it's just adding another API to. Actually, no, it's not even that. Creation is easy because it's just you put the ID in the project ID column, or you put the ID in the group ID column. That's the only difference between those.
Okay, well, what I'm gonna push, like I'm actually doing an opportunity canvas, is merging groups and projects together to one thing, which you're probably like, what the hell? But just because it is confusing.
Actually, no, that's good.
And you still have the inheritance, but like you only have one thing that has everything, so we're not recreating stuff at the group level that already exists in the project. And like I think it will simplify things in the grand scheme of things. So that's why, like, if you had to pick one, just put them in the groups, because that will serve more use cases than just having them in the projects if you have them just there.
And I mean, what's the idea? I remove projects completely, rename groups to projects, and then maybe in the future we could add a new group object, but that is actually like a membership type of deal, where you can use it for permissions and stuff like that. And pinging people.
So I'm still in the early phases trying to get buy-in from product as a whole and like manage and just we'll see how that goes. But
I mean, I do agree that would be good, because you really don't need a separate organization for milestones and things like that.
Well, it's weird that epics live at the group level, and you have group level milestones now, but then you have all that stuff duplicated at the project level, and then you don't know where things come from really. And like, if I want to create issues when I'm doing my project management at the group level, then I still have to select a product or project. And that's like, people want group level issues now. And like, they want everything that happens at a project, but doing it at a group level. And then they don't want to do all that issue management at the project level. Right. So it's, that's like a bigger thing to solve for, but I guess,
And we already have all of these inheritance things where a label from parent group can be used in a subgroup anyways. So we already all have all this stuff that we could reuse here.
Sorry, that was a slight tangential, but I just want to clarify.
This issue is only related to sprint creation, assignment to issues. Cool. So I updated that. Having those user stories under the epic would be epic.
Okay.
Because then we can just be checkboxing this. You just removed a lot of work towards the MVC, and I'm very glad that we talked about we talked with Donald, because I was going to do a controller instead of the GraphQL API.
Cool.
And then the controller would not have been necessary. Cool. I actually feel that this became a lot more lightweight.
Good.
Because I don't have to worry about system nodes and all that stuff yet.
Yeah. And if as you're working on this, you have questions, ping me I think we can probably do this in the burn up channel too. Just like to keep the communication open there.
Which channel, sorry? Burn down.
It's F_burn up.
Burn up charts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have burn down charts and burn up charts.
It's the burn up one. That's at least where I will put this epic is the second epic in that header there.
All right, I joined it and I'm adding it to my team area in Slack.
Sweet.
We can rename that to like agile workflows or something like. But yeah, we just wanted one place where we could talk this stuff out.
Yeah, that's fair.
A focus on it, which is cool. I'd also recommend, like, if you get a chance or you're curious at all, to check out some of the epics where we've broken stuff like this down before, in particular the Jira importer, and also requirements management was done very well as well. And there are a few more examples. So yeah, if you're looking for The reason I mentioned those is that the issues were broken out and so well detailed that other members of the team could pick them up right away, and all the context that they needed to get started was in the issue description. So just a really good example of
because right now my issues are bare bones.
Exactly, yeah. Like, I mean, that's common. I see it all the time. So yeah, like that's why these two were particularly successful when other people got involved.
Cool. So I'll get that sprint model review wrapped up today, so that unblocks everything else. And then I'll ping in the GraphQL API issue, and I'll ping you directly, Gabe, as well as Donald, and you, John, when I feel like we can get started on, like right before I start on the GraphQL API, I'll ping you so that you can see if there's a front-end engineer that's able to pick this up.
Cool, sounds good.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Ciao.
Yeah.
Later, everybody.
Weekend.